Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Alison. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how you can annotate a chart and go from a plain blank chart, such as this one, to a highly annotated chart like this. We're going to be working with the chart of Galileo, but of course, obviously you can use these techniques on any charts you ever do. I do have other videos about this and you can look into those too. Many people have asked me, where do you start? This seems to be one of the biggest stumbling blocks to doing astrological interpretations, knowing what to bring forward and what's the most important thing. So this is why we annotate or color in or highlight a chart in a specific way, looking at specific items that are going to be brought forward. And this is going to be a bit of a series. We're going to do a few more videos like this about how to bring the most important parts of a chart forward. So let's get started. So the first thing I do when I get the chart is to put the house ruling planet against each house cusp. So I'll start off with the Sun on the first house, Mercury second, Venus third house. The fourth house gets Mars and Pluto. Then the fifth house is Jupiter, Saturn. The seventh house is Saturn, Uranus. The eighth house will be Jupiter, Neptune. The ninth house, Mars. 10th house, Venus. 11th house, Gemini, well, Mercury. And then the 12th house is the Moon. So I go around and I draw around each house cusp the actual planets that are ruling those houses. When I've decided what the chart ruler is, in this case it's the ruler of the ascendant, which will be the Sun, I colour that in yellow. Everywhere the Sun pops up on this chart now, I will be colouring it in yellow because it is the chart ruler and it's a highly important planet in any chart, and very often it is the most important planet. So everywhere where we see the Sun now, we're going to actually be colouring that in yellow. Next, in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to be drawing my hemispheres and quadruplets circle. It's a circle with a cross in. I then count the visible planets in each quadrant, first quadrant, second quadrant, and so on. So the first quadrant has 0, second quadrant has 0, third quadrant has 4, and the fourth quadrant has 3 planets. So those are the quadrants, and that tells me where the emphasis is, where the energy emphasis is in his chart. Next, I'm drawing a element and modes block. So it's 4 columns by 3 rows. And the top columns will be fire, earth, air, and water, and the 3 rows will be cardinal, fixed, and mutable. I then count the visible planets, which is the Sun to Saturn, and decide how many planets I have in each of the element mode combinations or signs. So we're only going to be counting the actual visible planets here. So I've got 2 for cardinal water, 2 for fixed earth, and 3 for mutable water. Now your total on this grid will add up to 7. So we add the rows across and we get 2 cardinal, 2 fixed, and 3 mutable. And adding up the columns, we get 0 fire, 2 earth, and 0 air, and 5 water. I then go on to make a polarities list, which is the positive and the negative. So for him, the active is 0, and he has 7 passive planets. I just colour in the plus and the minus in red and green, which are, active and passive as well. And then I take my yellow highlighter again and highlight the higher element, which was water with 5, but there isn't specifically a higher mode, so I'm not particularly worried about that. Next, I'm looking at the major aspect patterns in the chart, and I'll be drawing those to the side. And Galileo has a T-square, and it's Neptune opposition Uranus, both squaring the Sun. So I will draw I will extract it and draw the little triangle, the little T-square triangle right there on the page, put in the actual planets that are at these points, because sometimes you have multiple T-squares and you want to pull each one out separately. So the M in the middle there means that it's a mutable T-square, because all planets are immutable signs, and T-squares get coloured in red. And I just highlight it lightly, sometimes more so, so that when I pick up this chart again in the future, I can immediately see this T-square, this major aspect pattern, and it brings a focus for me when I'm doing interpretations to find out where the main energies are. Because if you are looking at 5, 6 or 7 or 8 charts a day, you want to be able to quickly get to the core of these charts. And this is done by annotating or highlighting your page as soon as you get it. Now, I do this for all my clients and all my students, but this is just an example because people have been asking me about it, which I'm working on here for Galileo. So still working on the major aspect patterns, there's 2 stelliums in there. The first one is Sun, Pluto, Mercury. And the second stellium is Pluto, Mercury, Venus. The reason there's 2 stelliums and not one big one is because the Sun is not in conjunction to Venus. For a stellium to be in position, all the planets have to be within 8 degrees. So this technically can be called a rolling stellium, but specifically there are 2 specific stelliums, and they need to be analysed and interpreted separately. So again, I write them just on my page, on the front of my page. I'm writing there stellium number 1, and that's the Sun, Pluto, and Mercury, all in Pisces. And stellium number 2, which is Pluto, Mercury, and Venus, all in Pisces. So there will be slightly different energy coming through because of the different planets within these 2 stelliums. The one with the Sun in is bound to be a stronger stellium anyway, and the stellium with Pluto and Venus, which are the 2 financial planets, are likely to have a lot to say about his financial life as well, particularly because it's actually all occurring there in the 8th house. So just noting there that they're both in Pisces. And then drawing little bubbles almost around the main features, around the T-square, around the stellium, so I can see them. You can imagine that if you have a chart with, say, 4 T-squares and a yard and a Thor's hammer, you've got to be very judicious where you draw your little diagrams, but I still want them on the front of my page. So when I come back to this chart, I can see immediately where the energy is flowing, what planets are connected, and things of interest, that the highlights of the chart, which is really what you're going for. Next down there, I'm actually drawing his dispositor tree. So he has a committee dispositor tree. You can see more about dispositor trees in my video on that. So he's got Mercury is in Pisces, disposing the moon in Taurus, which then disposes Jupiter in Cancer. Coming down from Venus, we then have Mars in Taurus. That gets drawn below. Below the moon, we have Saturn in Cancer, and below that, Chiron in Capricorn. And then below Jupiter, there are actually 4 planets now: Sun in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces, Pluto in Pisces, and Uranus in Sagittarius. Then below the Mercury, we have Jupiter in Gemini. So that then gives us a dispositor tree with 11 planets that I'm using up to Chiron. And I always like to draw the dispositor tree on the front of the chart. Sometimes there's not really much room, and you really do need a 0.1 millimeter pen, which I don't think I'm using here. But again, you want to draw everything that pertains to the chart on the front so you can see it straight away. Normally, I would put somebody's chart into one of those plastic sleeves, and then behind, I would put the forecasting. Typically, a graphic ephemeris would go there. So I've got everything that I need to do a consultation in front of me, and it's not pages and pages of stuff that I'm shuffling through as I'm trying to do a consultation. Again, I'm taking the yellow and I'm colouring in the chart ruler, which in this case is, of course, the Sun again. The Sun is in the T-square, the Sun is in stellium number 1, and of course the Sun is in the dispositor tree. I'm just highlighting stellium number 2 with a little red outline because I did put it in on the main wheel with a red set of brackets, so you could see clearly the difference between the black stellium and the red stellium. Next, I'm moving on to make some notes just under the chart details. First up, we're saying that the Sun is the chart ruler. I'm noting that it's the crescent lunar phase. I note the oriental planet, which in this case is Chiron, and the occidental planet, which is Pluto. We note that the moon is most elevated in the chart, and actually that Jupiter is Jupiter will be the Almutin. Down the side of the aspectarian grid, where I've put +4 for the moon, that means that the moon is in exaltation in Taurus. Venus has got +4. Venus is in Pisces, and Jupiter is Where is Jupiter? Jupiter is in Cancer, so it's in exaltation there, also getting a +4. So I note those down the side, and this then tells me that I've got 4 planets at +4. So off the top of my head, I need to calculate the almutin from there, and without doing term and face, just going on the main essential dignities, I realize that Jupiter is in its own house, therefore it's in accidental dignity, and that will elevate it to almutin or Lord of the Geniture. So I'm noting that Jupiter is almutin in Galileo's chart. So this is how I generally annotate a chart. I put all the main details on the front, things that I'm going to want to zoom in on straight away, rather than having a load of charts and you pick one up and you think, now what's going on in this chart? Oh yes, she's got a T-square. Oh no, but hang on a moment, it's this and that. And that is why I actually annotate and color in charts. Typically, if I have a client or a student coming through, I will print their chart out and then annotate it that day and then ponder it. I don't go straight into the interpretations. I take time to do that. So there's a bit of a summarized overview of what features I've highlighted on this chart, what I feel are important. I've actually colored the T-square aspects in red there as well. I've also colored the tightest aspects, which was the Mars sextile Jupiter, in yellow. This is a close-up of all the details that I wrote on the chart, so I can see clearly, well, hopefully, what's going on and see what is of importance in this chart. I then did the T-square a little bit darker, highlighted the sun. There's your 2 stelliums and the hemispheres and quarters. So this is how I annotate all the charts I do. So there we have it. We've been through and we've highlighted Galileo's chart. We've put a whole load of coloured bits and bobs, notes and what have you on a chart. And obviously each chart will be different. But the idea is that you have a highlighted chart, so when you pick it up from your pile as a working astrologer, you can say, oh yes, this guy's the guy with the T-square, he's got this and that, and that's what you're looking at. The idea is to focus in on the most important things first when you're doing chart interpretations, because really you will be working with your chart basically for the rest of your life as you learn new techniques, new things that pop up, and you'll be saying, oh, how's this affecting my moon? How's this affecting my Jupiter? But when you start out, you want to get to the core matter first and say, which is the important planets? Let's highlight the chart ruler. Let's see how that's fitting in and stimulating this person's chart. So let me know if this is the technique that you would use when you do your chart interpretations. I'm Alison Price. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.